Scotland, and what did I find? I didn't know a word that was said. Had learned the language, I was doing fine to get a few words in my head.
That's the sound of two fellows who've been kicking around the world for the past 2 or 3 years. Manfred Müller and Paul Ernst Lures, both from Germany. Glad to have you with us, fellows.
Good day, David.
Good day.
Gentlemen, when did you actually start your travels and where from?
We started in the second day of Easter in 1964 from Bremerhaven, and we've been traveling ever since.
Could you tell us about some of the places you visited?
Well, there are so many places we have been seeing. Like, to give the full route of our whole trip would be maybe too much time. But it's the nearest Middle East, and the most time we spent here in the Far East, about roughly 3 years. And
Now,
a couple of months in Australia.
Were you both professional musicians before you started your tour?
We, Ernst is from Helgoland, I'm from Bremerhaven, and what I had to do with music first to start that out is that I met some people from AFN Bremerhaven, and at that time it was a program director called Sergeant Ronnie Jenkins, and he had an American group called the Coachmen, and due to the military setup, they were bound to go back to the States, and the group broke up, and he made a new group and called them the North Winds, and I was one of them, and I was the only German member at that time. There were 2 American gentlemen and one WAC, you call it, Women's Army Corps, and so we had a great time in AFN Frankfurt too, and mostly in the area of AFN Bremerhaven.
Then how did the two of you actually get together?
Well, we met each other in 1959 in school, and when Manfred was together with the Northwinds, as we were close friends there, I was pretty often together with them and listened to their rehearsing. So I got to know these songs too. So when we started on the trip in '64, I knew mostly all the songs Manfred knew.
What prompted your tour?
Well, it's hard. This is a very delicate question because you can either go on talking now of reasons and so ever, but when we were in school and we had in mind around 1961 that we would make a travel. Maybe it might be around the Mediterranean, or it might be the Near East, or whatever it is. But we got a little bit carried away by our own ideas and said in 2 years, it'll be in 1964, we shall be leaving on that and that date. Just, I don't know how it came up, but it is a fact that we said one day, 2 years before the whole thing started, that we would leave. And we did actually leave.
That doesn't mean that we planned the trip, really. We just more or less took off. We've been talking so much about the trip and dreaming, and everybody thought, well, there's some other crazy nuts here around.
A little bit young and foolish at the time.
Yeah.
And if you think you got to plan a trip like that, we have a German word, man kann sich verplanen. In other words, you can overplan it, like in a way we did. You need a compass, but we've never used a compass, and
there was a road.
There is a road, and if you can't find out where it goes to, you always can ask whether you know the language or not, but people will be always helpful to let you know. If you say, I want to get to Tehran, or where's the direction to Pakistan, somehow you make it,
This brings up an interesting question. You mentioned language. How many languages do you speak?
Well, we speak a little German, little English, and a little French.
And they have carried you all the way through the Far East?
Right. Yeah, well, if you don't know the language, you can use your hand, or you can use your heart, or whatever you want to use when you want to find out some direction or some questions. And always will be somebody around who speaks a very little bit English.
Let's go back a step. Did you have quite a little bit of money when you started your tour?
Quite a little bit.
Quite a little bit, and the thing was, we were going to school, and you cannot expect your parents to be the greatest supporters in an idea like that, especially when Ernst is the only son, and I'm the only kid, and so we had first of all to get the vehicle, and to pay for a vehicle is roughly $1,200, and you had to have a little equipment because you think you need to cook something, and you need equipment, tent or sleeping bags or things like that. And actually, when it came to the day when we started, we in the morning we had What was that?
About $5.
$5, and then my aunt came up and gave me another 100 marks. Well, and it added up that we had roughly 156 marks, which is roughly $40, a little bit less. And but we had tanked the car, put petrol, filled it up, and we have a special petrol tank which gives us you can drive almost 850 miles with the one full car, and so that made us leave Germany with the first filling, and trouble started already in Austria when you filled up, and the money got lower and lower.
Now, you drove south into Europe, or?
Yes, we drove from Bremerhaven, the Autobahn, Hanover, in the direction.
And that's Salzburg.
Salzburg, we out into Austria. First big test started, because we had overloaded our car. I mean, we thought, you need everything. We gave up our household and took everything along. And so we couldn't make the first pass, the Torn pass,
Yeah,
no?
we made about 2,000 meters in reverse.
Reverse,
over the pass.
Can you imagine, being on a world travel to conquer the
Big
world,
deal.
and the people, they were just laughing, seeing us going reverse up the hill, up the mountains. But it was not, that the car was not powerful enough. It was probably my own mistake that I thought, well, the car, I didn't shift
Treated
down.
nicely and
It treated
gently.
nicely, and that was the biggest mistake. I mean, you've got to have it touring pretty high if you want to have it shift down early enough. But it never did it again. I mean, we never had to do the reverse anymore.
Now, where did the Happy Wanderers actually make their debut singing?
It's very hard to say because we, maybe let's say the first time we sang together, this was in Pakistan, Radio Pakistan, and this was the first time I ever stood in front of a microphone, so I was a little bit scared of this thing.
Well, how did you get from Germany to Pakistan?
Oh, good thing. That is true. That is, we drove now through Austria, through Yugoslavia, and at 64, we were still scared about the communist star, because, I mean, you hear about this, and we were, in a way, glad that we got out after only 6 or 7 days, and which is actually unfair to every country to only stay a few days. And there we got broke, and we sold one.
We got broke in Yugoslavia, we were broke in Turkey, we were broke in Iran,
Yeah.
we were broke in Pakistan, we were broke for almost a continuous 1 year.
And so we sold the radio and had enough petrol money to get to Greece, and we came to Turkey, and in Turkey we visited the Automobile Association and asked them how to get on and how the roads are and what you've got to ask, And they asked us for one special paper, and this will indicate how well we planned the whole trip. And we said, what kind of a paper is it? They said, I mean, this is the most important paper you have
The only
to have.
paper really need passport and this candidate passage, and if you don't have it, just turn back and
They said,
go
why
back
don't you
home."
go back home? And we said, why? Yeah, because, I mean, this is the paper which guarantees our country or the custom people that you import the car and will export the car. They give you a time of half a year that you can stay in the country. We said, we don't have that. They said, okay, turn around. So we went on. We said, okay, let's see. Our luck, we'll see.
Big optimism, always.
Yeah. And so we were staying in Turkey. The army supported us in Turkey, not the American, the Turkish army, because they, first of all, liked the Germans very much due to points of history. And we sang for them. I mostly sang, I have to say, at that time.
I wasn't singing that time.
And we were stolen one of these nights. We stayed with an army lieutenant, and gone was all our papers. Gone was our beautiful shotgun. We could have sold for $200 in Turkey.
10 times the price we paid for.
Yeah, it was with a hammer, the 12-gauge hammer, and just beautiful. We never shot anything with it. We didn't even see feathers. I mean, we
We tried it 3 or 4 times in Turkey, and woof, that was all.
It was
Nothing.
and
Good shots, the German, huh?
yes, and so we were stolen, and the camera was gone. So the whole city felt sorry for us, and actually they really did feel sorry for us, and so did we feel sorry for ourselves. But we were very lucky to say that all our papers were stolen. So the government wrote down a paper saying,
All their touristic papers have been stolen. These poor guys. So this-
including the Carnet de Passage,
Yes.
which we never had. I'm sorry if anybody of the Turkish authorities might hear this. But thanks to them, because they made it possible that we could continue the traveling through Turkey and out of Turkey into Iran. Because what happens now on the border was that they felt so sorry for us, especially in Iran now, that they said, these bad Turkish people, they stole you. The big boss came up and gave us tea and said, you get the special treatment that you come into our country, that it will not happen here, and so on. And so we went through Iran.
Yeah, and then we came to Pakistan, $3.50 in our pocket, and all our items mostly sold already.
Yeah.
So we had to sell some shirts, to get some petrol down to Karachi.
Yeah.
Very, very true. I'll tell you what let's do. Let's play one of the songs that you're doing very well with over here, especially in Korea and in Japan, where you just came from. Snoopy and the Red Baron, and then we'll get back and talk a little bit more about the Wanderers today.
All right.
All right.
Und nun wir singen zusammen die Geschichte vom blutigen Baron von Richthofen und dem Schwein und Snoopy. After the turn of the century, in the clear blue skies of Germany, came a roaring thunder man had never heard, by the scream and the sound of a big war bird. Up in the sky, a man in a plane, Baron von Richthofen was his name. 80 men tried and 80 men died, now they're buried together on the countryside. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 or more, the bloody red baron was hung up the shore. 80 men died by suicide, way on the bloody red baron of Germany. In the midst of the time, a hero rose, a funny-looking dog with a big black nose. He flew to the sky to seek revenge, but the Baron shot him down.
Guess it's fired again.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 or more, the bloody red Baron was torn off the shore. 80 men died by the inside way of the bloody red Baron of Germany. Now Snoopy had sworn that he'd get that man, so he asked the great pumpkin for a new battle plan. He challenged the German to a real dog fight, while the Baron was laughing, he got him in the side. Bloody red Baron was in a fix. He tried everything, but he'd run out of tricks. Snoopy fired once, Snoopy fired twice, and soon the red Baron was spinning outside. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 or more, the bloody red Baron was running on the score. 80 men died by the red that tree of the bloody red Baron of Germany. Well, 20, 30, 40, 50 or more, the bloody red Baron was running the score. 80 men died by the red that tree of the bloody red Baron of Germany. We shall overcome
There's a song that's bringing the house down. Well, it has been around Korea, and it was in Japan, and I think it was in Australia. But we're talking a little bit more about the travels of the Happy Wanderers, and Manfred and Ernst are both here with many, many, many interesting stories. Let's travel on down to Hong Kong. You traveled to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, we arrived a day before Christmas, 64. And we arrived there as nicely looking suit and nicely dressed up, had very few contact addresses. But our total of money we had in our pocket was roughly $10, maybe a little less, maybe a couple of cents less. And now we wanted to bring the Far East down. We wanted to make it. We thought, now the great people from Germany come here, and they really gonna make it. But we're kind of mistaken, because Hong Kong is a very, very tough city, and the competition is very high. So, well, the first time, like Memphis said before, the first time we had to pay for a room was in Hong Kong. We stayed at the YMCA, and it's a rather expensive institution all over the world, maybe too expensive for youngsters going around.
I think due to the fact, and I don't hesitate to mention that many people take advantage of an institution like that and come with big cameras and
I mean, many tourists.
Tourists, yes, and who should normally have the money to stay in a hotel and make use of a YMCA and maybe even take away the room for young kids who want to stay there for little money, and this is why the prices go up. And I definitely would say that the system in Europe is much better, the youth hostel system, where you pay maybe 30 cents or 40 cents for a night and you can have a meal for 30 or 40 cents.
Yeah, well, you pay in Hong Kong something like $3.
Yes, the US.
It's too much.
Now, did you perform in Hong Kong, any at all?
Yeah, we performed in Hong Kong, yeah. We were a little bit lucky. But first when we arrived, Manfred's throat trouble and he couldn't sing at all for a couple of days, so he was out. But then Christmas Eve arrived. And normally Christmas evening, the 24th, is a big deal in Germany. It's the greatest event, I would say. And so our thoughts, of course, drifted home. And we're thinking of the big turkey or goose, whatever you have, or the big Schweinebraten, whatever it is. Yeah? So, but we had nothing. We had not even money anymore to stay in the hotel, or even the YMCA was too much for us, so we had no contact. All the contacts we got, the addresses failed, as space is very limited in Hong Kong. So we're drifting around the day. In the evening we sit on the Star Ferry. Everybody was passing with big parcels and big Christmas grin on their face, and everybody was looking happy except us. We were kind of cold because it was kind of drafty. We waited for our Christmas angel to come and say, well, poor guys, you look so unhappy and you're hungry, why don't you come over to my house? But nothing happened. So we went to the other side, on to Kowloon's side, and checked in the YMCA to find out maybe there's somebody who feels a little pity for us. We have these thoughts then, but nothing happened. So it was about 12 o'clock in the evening. We left our cameras with the YMCA and drifted down Nathan Road, just on luck. Maybe we meet somebody, or we just making some contacts that we could stay the night somewhere. Suddenly Manfred emerged to the left, and there was an iron gate. He was disappeared, and then I heard Salam Alaikum and Shukriya and
Alaikum Salam.
There was a Muslim mosque, and we know from our experiences in Muslim countries that these people are very hospitable. And when you come to their house, they cannot refuse to take you, especially in mosque.
Yeah.
So Manfred was talking quite fluently, so though his throat was kind of hurting. But they put us up for 2 weeks. Very nice people, but this place was just a little, I would say, was kind of
out of style.
Yeah, it was out of style.
The thing was, the people.
The rats, they cover the floor.
Yes, Banua, jail. No, the thing was, the people are aware, and I think they still are because we looked them up a little later again. They are night watchmen, so they work in the nights and sleep the daytime if they sleep. And so we used their beds, which are little chapois, and so we had to stay on one little chapoy together, and so we stayed there for 2 weeks, washing our white shirts and trying to make contacts. And you wouldn't believe it, we looked up the manager of the Mandarin Hotel and asked him whether he wanted some for $500 a week, and we didn't even have $8, to start with, But we never said, and they were always asking us, where do you stay? Where can we contact you?
Always friends. You've got a telephone? No, he's got no telephone. He's just moved in,
Everybody's got a telephone in Hong Kong, but so well we met with an agent who said, well, I can probably put you into a show at the Hong Kong Club, Monsieur Duchemin. And we sang there, but it was the New Year's Eve when we sang there. And
they put us in the last 15 minutes, just 15 minutes before 12 o'clock, so everybody was looking for the partner to kiss or to grab or to dance or making some noise. Yeah, so people have asked us afterwards, I didn't see you there. Have you been there? I haven't heard you.
I was there too.
The whole room was full with people, but they didn't even bother to listen to us because it was so close to 12 o'clock. But anyhow, we made some money, and we could rent a room. So we paid in advance for 1.5 months in advance, and then our money was gone. A couple of days later, we had another engagement in the same club, and so we made some more money. But anyhow, we left for Vietnam, just left the thing like it was. We left for Vietnam, and out of these 2 weeks stay, we stayed 7 months there. Not only in Saigon, we were in Nha Trang and Da Nang, then worked in a couple of special forces camps, like Quezon, Cam Doc, Phu Toc, Ba To.
And you know, I mean, people know what an A camp is, and we had
It's,
quite some very great experiences in these places.
Now, you performed namely for Americans in Vietnam.
Mostly,
Yes.
if it is not allied with the Australians. But the thing was, when we were in Saigon, we played, I mean, people who've been stationed there in the plaza, in the Quezon, in the
Hung Dao, in
townhouse,
on
and
Townsend with mostly all the places.
in the officers' Five Oceans, the
Yeah.
Brings,
The
and
International Club.
the Coco Club. There we
Yeah.
go. And the agent turned out to be a very bad agent, and the gentleman still owes us about $1,200. And well, promises are very easy to do, to make, and we first of all believed always. And we were then promised that we were about to go to Da Nang, and before that we had an accident in Saigon on Kong Li, and involved with an American soldier in a car, and we, as we looked like you people, they thought we were Americans, so we were put into the hospital. It was at that time the 17th station, I don't know what
17th field.
field hospital, and we were 5 days in the hospital, and you can talk.
Yeah, well, we were a little kind of hurting. So when I was lying in bed, suddenly a well-known personality, General Smallland, came over to my bed and said, "Hey, Paul, what are you doing here? Huh? Where did you get wounded?" And I said, "Well, an action on Kong Li, you know." He
No
thought I
Purple
was,
Heart.
he thought I was an American soldier, you know? So that was kind of a surprise.
We then had to continue working or singing with our we were on crutches because we couldn't walk. Our legs were pretty much messed up there, and so we sang in the place like the International House of the Coco Club. And I remember one show that an American doctor came up. He said, "If you don't want to lose your leg, you better stop singing or stop working." And but we had to work because the agent had promised us to pay for the hotel, and we were already $450 in the hole for the hotel. That was in the Dongkan, probably known to many people too, in Cholong, and many stories connected, of course, with the places. And we then the agent come up and comes up and says, "I want you for a weekend in Da Nang." And out of this weekend, that turned out to be 11 weeks, because we then sang in the Take 10 for, it was Sergeant Jim.
5-6 weeks we sang there.
Yeah, 5 to 6 weeks out of these 2 days. And then after Da Nang we went to Nha Trang. We sang for the Special Forces in the Neptune Club, and we met with a Lieutenant Colonel Smith at the time. And he said, well, first, no, we went with
Captain
Captain Suhan.
Suhan, yeah.
Captain Suhan,
He
yes.
was captain of the Special Force camp,
Food talk.
Food Talk. And he said, would you like to come over to sing for my boys? You know, I said, yeah, why not? Hell,
We didn't know what
sure,
was
why
awaiting
not?
us.
Hell yeah.
And I think, I mean, even though this gentleman maybe said was maybe not supposed to put Germans into his camp, but he did. And we flew into the camp with the Aussie pilots, the Cariboos. And first thing what they said was, "Hey, Marsh, we don't know when you picked you up again." So we were there.
Why don't you stick around a little bit?
Yes, all right, Marsh.
Isn't this kind of an uneasy feeling, not being affiliated with the military and going
Nothing.
in like this?
No, we just
It wouldn't matter, you know, whether you are or not, you know, that you look the same, and if they think you're American, they shoot it then afterwards, you know.
Did they give you
Say
arms?
hello.
Yes, well,
weapons?
not definitely. We were, of course, personally interested. We had some people gave us an M2, and we thought to convert it, to an M1, get the selector out, but they in the camp they exchanged these M2s to M1s because they said they could use the M2s for the AFN troops, and we shot the things, and we thought of going out with them because it's legal to have a normal carbine, an M1, but we left all the weapons there, and so we came to Food Talk and.
Said, what's the action there? He said, oh, Charlie hasn't shown up for 6 weeks, you know. Nothing happening here. I said,
right.
that's good news, and fine, great. So in the evening we gathered around. It was just a sitting together, about 250 montagnards and 12 Special Forces people, and about 30 engineers, army engineers.
Army engineers.
And we were about singing for 10 minutes, suddenly the bullets came flying, you know. Charlie was there, didn't like our performance. So everybody was suddenly disappeared in 2 seconds. The whole audience was just gone.
Never seen an audience, right? I mean, you cannot be that bad as no entertainer. that
It can be a flop.
yeah, they let you see that differently.
You actually saw a little bit of combat at
Oh
that
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So
but
I
the-
dived for a motor hole, and after about 10 minutes, or 5 or 10 minutes, the action was over. It was just more little sniper fire. So I got back, and Manfred didn't get the whole thing quite well. So he was sitting still with his guitar on his chair, and looking quite puzzled. That was all what he was. Yeah, I said, "What's the hell?" Again? Next time you hear something like this, you just go. Yeah,
The thing was, I was stunned. The thing was, the shooting was on and it was over. Everybody ran away, and I thought, well, no more shooting. Why should I go now? I mean, I didn't know where to go to anyhow. It was all dark. You know, there were no lights, and we were on the booth already. I mean, this was not a floor show for 45 minutes. We said we want to entertain you people. That means where is the beer or where, you know, and they all had a beer and they were all sitting around us. We were sitting on chairs, not standing, no fancy dress, just camouflage, special forces camouflage on. And so, but I realized, and they told me, the captain said, Manfred, the next time you better get going. And well, we were singing on for about 20 minutes, and good old cheating hard.
You
There was
cheating
some,
hard.
and that was the sign. I mean, I only harmonized in that song. He sing. I don't know.
Suddenly there was a flash in the area. That was Manfred.
And I looked for this motor position, and you know, I saw this shadow, and I think that's a guy. At least it's a guy I land on, because I don't know how deep a motor position is, you know. And I land on the motor halfway, and it was, you know, my leg and the guitar broke all apart. And you see it. They later call it the Purple Heart guitar. But what happens is we sit in there, and then they start shooting that big thing. You know, I mean, it's quite loud, and then control to control flares up, and I think scared, and they throw me that grease gun. Okay, the most accurate weapon in the world, I heard. So we were put into a different position, ammunition bunker. That's where we sit. You know, we sit in an ammunition bunker, and Ernst says, never again. He says, for no money. I mean, we don't make.
Through.
We are through. No more A camps, and we don't make any money anyhow. You know, this was after, and we said, what are we doing here anyhow? And then you see they shoot the motors, and the forest starts burning. Just, I mean, 1 mile or I don't know how far away, and then out we come. Everybody's gone except the special forces guys who were not. I mean, the second lieutenant was on duty, and they would come, and this one guy, we never forget this. You know, this Tom, yeah, Tom was his name, and he says, here's your guitar. He had it patched up in the meantime with army tape, and we sang on for another 4.5 hours.
What are the musical plans for the Happy Wonders at this point? Are there any definite plans made, or are you going to just kind of roll with the punches?
There's no real definite plans, but we've got some dreams what we maybe would like to do. For instance, when we are in the States, if we might meet the right person who would be interested in our ideas, like reviving old European songs, or let's say more or less German songs, as we are Germans. Songs maybe our grandmother or our parents sang, and still well known to the people who migrated to the States. To revive these songs, maybe a little different arrangement.
With a little Nashville beat.
Yeah.
The thing is we had learned this, that young guys come up to us, and they ask us to sing a song, and we just then wonder, how in the world is this person able to know a song like that? And he then said, well, my grandmother always sang it to me, and these songs are evergreens in Germany, and they are not recorded anymore. When they are out of production. And the thing is, this is why we wrote back home in the last a year already, to the parents or grandparents to send their own school books or what they were singing when they were going out to dance or something like that. And these are songs, they are so beautiful, and they are known by only people who must have had a connection with them, like people in the States who had their grandparents singing. And this would be a definitely great thing to do. Not just the Wumtata, I mean, Munich steht ein Hochbauhaus, everybody knows that, but this has been recorded so very often. But we would like to do German music with maybe a backing American group, that actually Americans do a German medley of songs, or European medley of songs, that, you know, they know it themselves, you know.
German music goes country.
Yeah, well, something with Joe Allison, yeah, interrupt country corner for station identification.
Gentlemen, we'd like to thank you so very much for taking time to come by and talk to us today, and the very best of luck in the immediate future. The Happy Wanderers, Manfred Müller and Paul Ernst Lures, both from Germany, traveling the world. I guess you'd call yourselves international globetrotters at this point. And if you're ever back over in this area, which I'm afraid before you make it to the United States you will be back in this direction, stop in and see us again.
Thank you very much, Dave. And our thanks go to the people we sang for here at in Korea, whether the 2nd Division up the DMZ or at Osan, the air base, which we just played in the weekend. And thanks to the people connected and who made it possible. Thank you.
And auf Wiedersehen.
Wieder-
Let's listen to